Hello everyone, thanks for joining me. I'm Chris Van Cleve. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been more than 270 mass shootings in the United States in 2019 alone. That's more shootings than days in the year so far. It's a shocking number to hear, but for families who have lost mothers, fathers, spouses, and children to the violence, their loss is impossible to quantify. To begin to understand the effect, CBS This Morning co-host Gayle King sat down with 4 people touched by mass shootings over the last 6+ years, all working through different stages of grief. Stephanie Melendez's father was killed in El Paso earlier this month. The Reverend Sharon Risher lost her mother and cousins in the Charleston church massacre. Richard Martinez's son Chris was killed during a rampage in Isla Vista, California. And Nelba Marquez Green's 6-year-old daughter Anna was killed in the Sandy Hook massacre. Here is part 1 of this emotional conversation you'll only see on CBS.
When I look at all of you sitting here, I think you're in the club nobody wants to be in, and yet here you all are in this club that nobody wants to be in. Stephanie, I want to start with you, because unfortunately for you, it's now become a reality for you. And I'm wondering how you're processing all of this. How long has it been?
It's been about 2 weeks. And right now it's like, it feels like a dream. I feel like I'm gonna wake up at any moment and my dad's just at work. And none of this is real. Life is normal again. But I'm still in that process where it doesn't feel real yet.
You feel like you're in a state of shock?
I think it would be called shock. Yeah. I don't know if it's not accepting what happened or just not accepting that it's real.
I think that's a very normal response. Our brains actually aren't designed to take in that level of trauma all at once. And I also feel the same way, and it's been 7 years. I have difficulty accepting that this is a part of our story, and that's very normal.
For a long time, I was in this fog. And
how long has it been for you?
It's been 4 years since the shooting in Charleston. And in the beginning, like I said, it was a fog. It felt like you had all of the smoke around you and you couldn't see clear. And like it just followed me everywhere I went. You're trying to figure it out. And yeah, and I just hurt for you. I hurt for you so bad, because I know, and that's one of the things about all of this. We all know that we go through such horrific things, and our bodies and our minds have to try to figure out what to do with us. I lost 40 pounds right after everything happened. And so it gets you physically and emotionally and spiritually. If you're a person of faith, you have all of these things you deal with.
Richard, everybody always says, with every news story that this happens, there's always someone who says, I can't believe this has happened here. You read about it on the news, but I can't believe it has happened here. And in Isla Vista, California, you said the same thing.
Absolutely. I can remember taking my son to college at UC Santa Barbara, and he loved it there. He had really good friends, and he loved the school. And for us, your life is ordinary, and everything is in place, and then in a moment, your world changes, and it'll never be the same. I read a book fairly recently, and they were saying that people who experience tragedy either never recover and get back to the place they were, or become stronger and wiser. I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. The way I see it is, there's not 3 separate categories. Each one of us is all 3 of those things. You go through periods of time when you do feel, the worst thing that's ever happened to me has already happened to me. I'm stronger in that sense. But at the same time, I'm never going to recover. I don't want to get over it.
You do not?
I don't want to get over it. Chris was our only child. We were older parents. Getting over it would seem to me to be a betrayal of my son's memory, and I don't want to get over it.
But how do you go on if you don't get over it?
Well, you're not one thing all the time. How I deal with it is I feel like I have an obligation as a parent to my son. And that's the work that I do to try to stop gun violence. You know, I can't save Chris, but I don't want it to happen. Shouldn't happen to her father. Shouldn't happen to Anna, Elva's daughter.
Elva's daughter.
And Sharon's mother and 2 cousins. You know, it's outrageous to think that this problem is just going to disappear in our country if we don't do anything.
It adds insult to injury, this whole concept of post-traumatic growth that we do to survivors. We look to them as these beacons and we say, yes, you're going to grow and you're going to get stronger and they're going to do these amazing things. And what that doesn't address is the injustice of this, right? This is not our kids died because we were negligent. This is not our loved ones passed because we did something wrong. There is an injustice of gun violence in this country. And if you lose that day, you lose, and we will do nothing. And there is something incredibly wrong with that. So don't talk to me about post-traumatic growth.
Yeah, or moving on.
Or moving on.
Or
moving
the
on.
healing process, you will never heal.
Talk to me about
I
justice.
believe you learn to navigate day by day. One day might be a good day, another day, I don't want to get out the bed. And
Still.
yes,
Oh,
still,
still.
4 years later, I can't call my mom and ask her, how do you cook gumbo?
Yeah.
Or which sermon Reverend Pinckney preached last Sunday. So, and to go to Charleston now is very difficult for me. So you don't heal, you know, you just navigate the best way you know how, day by day, and some days you have good days and some days you don't.
You know, I look at you, Stephanie, still so new, where you said you'll wake up and it'll be over. How do you even begin this grieving process and accepting this?
I honestly don't even know the answer to that right now, because right now it's day by day, and somebody even told us it's not even day by day, it's minute by minute and hour by hour, just trying to get through each day. There's times I still pick up my phone ready to call my dad,
Your dad.
and I can't. And I had to put the phone back down.
One of the things that happens, though, is that when you start talking to other survivors,
Yeah.
you begin to understand that the process ahead, that people do survive these things, and that you can learn from other people, because there's things that we know that we don't have to say in words, you know, and because we've shared that same experience. And
What happens to all of you when you hear there's another shooting? You see it on the news.
And this is why it's so difficult to move on as they ask you to. We'd finally decided to go on holiday. We were feeling peaceful and away from Newtown, from the reminders of back to school. And I start getting the text on my phone. Turn off your phone. Turn off your phone. And it's your shooting. It's your day. And everything stops. Everything stops, because all of a sudden you know that people are experiencing the same things. It's the injustice that we have decided to do nothing, and that more people join my pain. It's bad enough that I have to feel this, but to know that every day almost 100 Americans join this, whether it's in a mass shooting or everyday gun violence, it's not okay. And we are creating a group of people who have experienced this. Make no mistake, there's no support for. There is no support for. I think Sandy Hook was different and unique in that the world poured out its heart and soul into us. But some of these shootings happening now are happening in such quick succession that there's no breathing room and there's no support. So that's why I gave you my phone number, because that's why we gave you our phone number, because we know.
When we found out, I rushed to Walmart because my 9-year-old daughter was there with my parents. So first it was just rushing to Walmart, and then of course it was blocked off. I couldn't even get in. They just told me go home and wait. And at that point it was waiting to find out, you know, at this point I had already known my father was shot because my mom had told me, but she kept repeating that her and Caitlin were not shot.
Your dad is credited with saving your mom and your daughter.
He pushed them underneath the cashier's desk, got shot in the process. We got to the hospitals and moved around the hospitals trying to locate my father. I stayed there till after midnight, and they finally told me, go ahead and come back in the morning. So we came back in the morning.
So you had to sleep all night not knowing.
Well, I
for
didn't
sure.
even sleep, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And then not knowing, and then the next day we got there as soon as they opened the doors in the morning, and it was like 4 or 5 o'clock at night when we finally.
So a day later you find out. Of course you can't sleep, waiting to get the news.
I was just sitting there waiting.
All 4 people on our panel were willing to sit down and discuss their difficult experience with the hope of changing the national conversation around gun control. After the break, you'll hear more of that conversation. Stay with us.